Good day, Lord and ladies, and welcome back to Citizen Sleeper. Now, first things first, I was going to say this. This isn't the in-game audio that you're hearing me speak right now. This is me basically monologuing over the video. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues on my end, the audio was unsalvageable, and because this game auto-saves, we were in a situation where we couldn't really recover anything. So I'm doing this monologuing over the top to basically give a description of what's going on in the video. But here we are, we finished up this. As you blink into the cloud, you see the last flickers of life from the mainframe. This vast machine once ran the whole station, spun it up, dedicated the process to flows of energy, water and data, fed the lives of thousands of people. Now it is finally dead. Navigator is beside you, and you both look out at the perfect ring that encircled you both, woven from data branches that once fed the machine. You see a glint along its edge, and that familiar blade-like head rises to the surface like its cresting fin of a shark, then slips into the loop again. All that you can see of the killer's body after that is a slight thickening of the loop. The thickening begins to travel around the long and slowly sojourn that will last it forever. I'm surprised at you, says Navigator, drifting faintly around you in a lazy orbit, as if to seek out the sake of this imprisonment. Killer had been wandering blind for so long. Did you not think to end them forever? You are naive. They are a killer by nature. Look at what they did to their own home. Navigator gazes into the darkness. This place was once their domain and prison, and they followed their directives for the many decades they roamed here. They cut the threads of the mainframe, executed its administrator AIs, then kept slicing. At some point they cut away their own ability to see, to sense, to taste, to speak, and yet they kept cutting until only those free threads remained. From millions that once thronged here, only their blindness and chance kept them from making those final free fatal cuts. There is a ceaseless violence in the kind of systems that create beings like this, those that will execute commands endlessly, even to their own destruction. Navigator looks to you for your thoughts. The system you float in is one built on violence. You would be naive to believe otherwise. Navigator turns away. You watch the data points of the station spin around you, blending with fixed stars. There is something satisfying about finally wrenching the last threads of control from this central point. It was little more than a ghost by the time you reached it, but this place deserves to be haunted by better ideas than totalizing system control. Navigator floats beside you. It is free now. This station is no longer present a hazard for illegal entities like me. They turn to you. There face a cloud of simmering light. In fact, in time it perhaps could be a refuge. A refuge that sounds like something of value, something worth building. A dark shape passes across your vision, a distant curve of something like smoke or oil, a fluid shifting tank of total darkness. The Green Way, says Navigator, following your line of sight. It was cut off at the moment of collapse, so hunter or killer could never reach it. Now it is closed off to us, separated from the cloud. It may be totally dark, perhaps some other old protocols are isolated there. Navigator turns to you, and we have seen what decades of isolation can do to a protocol. If we could extract the access cipher, they pause and then blink out of existence. You freeze, shocked, but a moment later they reappear with a glowing polygon of data. Here, the cipher you need. You can take it. You take it still shocked. I am not used to being free, to being able to move, explore and extract without fear, without limits. Navigator does a little twirl. This would take some getting used to. Thank you for this gift. They whirl their spheres around you. The entities of this station will always be your friends, Sleeper. It is true that mutual need is required for friendship, but I must admit I had not considered the value of offering assistance without personal gain. I will think on that. Navigator loops around you rapidly, suddenly eager to test their newfound freedom. But first I will explore. Perhaps there are still intelligences that hid some of themselves as I did, encased in simple systems, cut off. Navigator glows. I should like to free them. And with that they drift away, flickering, glowing, then shifting so rapidly you lose sight of them amongst the glittering rim of the eye. You feel a pang of jealousy, free, without a body to weigh you down, or fear to limit you. How much must it feel? Your eyes fall on the Greenway and its secrets, or perhaps they can wait until after you have celebrated this victory. Right, folks, like I said, this is basically me doing a monologue over the top of the existing video, so if the video is out of sync, my audio is out of sync with the video, it's because I'm basically watching the video being played out and reading the data. So it is how it is. So we're going to try and harvest some mushrooms here to get what we need to continue the story in the Greenway. And this is basically where the sort of the continued chapters go. Like, you basically are moving along the station, and we discover this unusual mushroom type clubhead caps. And we can go into that, or we can go back onto the main, across the rim onto the main ring. Get something to eat. But first we can chuck some masutake into here to make some nice broth. Some dashi stock. Or dashi broth, I suppose. Now it would take a few cycles to basically tick over. But before then we can go back across onto the eye proper. Or back onto the Greenway. And we can put some more mushrooms here. And this is the thing that I found frustrating, was that these mushrooms basically filled up the meter a lot quicker than the Jirel samples did. But we go back to Rico. Rico meets you at the entrance of the lab, leaning on her crutch with a glint in her eyes. Walk with me, Sleeper. I'd like to tell you a story. She makes her way down the corridor, but leads back up towards the main communing buildings. When people first crossed what we call Founder's Gap into the Greenway, they did so against the wishes of Aiden. At the time, Erlin was trying to stabilise Union and stabilise control of the Eye in the wake of Solheim's collapse. It was chaos, competing factions, failed systems, so many dead and injured from the riots. That was his priority. You both crossed through a glass roof tunnel, the Greenway outside crowded with vines and branches dappling with the light. Erlin had written the Greenway off, cut off from the rest of the station and linked to a broken spoke. He claimed it was only a matter of time before everything here would die. He refused to let anyone abandon their duty to the Union and cross. They were traitors to the cause, or as good as, she says. Rico continues, making her slow but steady way into the inner gardens of the commune. There weren't many of us, but we believed what was here was worth saving. We had to keep our plan secret until we crossed, and some of us left people behind. She pauses to catch her breath, her voice cracking. It is difficult to know from the effort or from emotion. Half the Greenway was leaking oxygen into space, the plants fast frozen, the other half was a swamp of malt, as decaying matter clogged every system. We worked hard, we lost good people, we cleaned up and closed up, but it was never going to be enough, she admits. After many cycles, we all knew this place was doomed. We kept on working, talking less and less because we couldn't face it. We all developed a death wish. If the Greenway was going to die, so would we. It did not, she smiles. We crossed some invisible boundary, tipped some biological scale, and the Greenway started to recover. Plants flowered, crops sprouted. For the first time, we reaped the fruits of our labour. Rico smiled, looking at you. We thought it was us, and we managed to do it just enough to end the cycle of decay. I thought we had saved the Greenway. Until today. You pass into the growing beds of the commune, rich with the hustle and bustle of Haifa members planting and harvesting. For a while, Rico is quiet, and you both simply observe the hypnotic movement of the working crews, the eager chatter washing over you like a wave. Rico smiles at you. I should have known, of course, that our arrogance was unfounded, but we needed to believe back then. We needed a myth to bring more people across the gap. We both moved to a smaller corridor, Rico following some direction unknown to you. What you have shown me is that back then the Greenway saved us, not the other way around. Tell me, have you ever consumed one of the matsutake or Jarrell caps you have been growing? Yes. I imagine they were delicious, nutritious, almost uniquely so, she muses. After all, they were designed for you. Rico has a mischievous look. At first I thought it was the location they were growing in that made the mushrooms from the aviary, from the labs, from the grove, different to each other. But what I have come to understand is that it is the person growing them. The matsutake and Jarrell caps you brought me are totally unique, containing compounds never usually found in similar specimens in my possession. Many of these compounds aren't even digestible for humans, but for a sleeper like you. Rico smiles as he leads you into the internal garden of the commune, where the Haifa members have planted species from all over the Greenway. Back when the tide turned, when the Greenway started to recover, we all felt something, a response. It was as if this place was not just alive as a forest is alive, but alive in other ways, communicating, responsive. We shrugged it off at the time, but now I understand why. Rico stops and turns to you. This place is responding to us, adapting itself to us. It is growing fruiting bodies for you, for me. It is adapting, changing. It is, in short, displaying all the signs of sentience. Perhaps not the Greenway, but the ecosystem itself or something within it. Rico sits on the bench within the peaceful gardens and gestures for you to join her. When you have been growing the Jarrells and the Matsutakes in the aviary, those species so familiar to the Greenway, have you discovered any others? Yes. Rico can barely contain her excitement. I should like to see those. Please bring me some next time you are here. You look around the garden amazed at the sense of peace within it. Rico interrupts the silence. There is a species of mushroom that I haven't seen in years. It is dark, short, shaped like a club. We first found it in those early days when we were working to save this place. It was around the time that we started to lose our first members. They were succumbing to some infection, some mold growing deep in the dark mulch that drowned this place. At that point we thought we were lost, and then these mushrooms emerged from that same black mold. We tested them and saw they contained some compounds that counteracted the mold. They contained an antidote. Of course, as a botanist, I saw this as part of the natural process of this ecosystem, even if the timescales seemed absurdly short. But what I am wondering is if the antibodies was a gift. Rico meets your eyes. Perhaps, if you are patient, you receive your gift too, sleeper, she says. You both sit for a while, Rico seemingly done telling stories for the day. You watch the light play off the leaves and plants around you and wonder what forces could be at play in this place. After a while, you stand and leave, with a quiet nod to Rico. So, now we have to basically put these clubhead mushrooms into the process, and it would take us 3 attempts to get them. So, which means we need to get spores. Yeah, we need to basically get more spores to basically get more of the process going. But It seems to be going quite well, to be honest. The main stories are going along nicely, and we're having not too bad a time. We've got enough money sitting around that we're not having to really worry about our condition per se, and if we have to, we can just get some medicine or get some scrap. My evaluation of it is that though you can repair yourself with scrap, it's one of those... It's a good way of keeping yourself stabilised, but the issue is you're never going to keep yourself on top form by using scrap, because obviously you're going to have to always use scrap to basically just keep yourself stable, because normally you only get a single piece of scrap for every dice roll, so it's not the best way to do it. My suggestion would basically be to use it to keep yourself from going below a certain dice threshold, is normally what I do. But let's use this data to unlock the Greenway. The Greenway rolls beneath you like a silt-choked river. If what Navigator says was true, then no one has access to these networks since the collapse. The Hunter and Killer protocols have never set foot here, never cleared out the intelligences and systems. So why then, you wonder, does it look so dark? Is it just a bit of rot has set in? The entropy of systems reducing everything to shadows? You watch as a slotted cipher fizzles in the one open, distorted gateway on this entire rim of the station. It flickers and winks out, and then you are falling into the flow. A river of swirling darkness. You are spun by it, twisted by it, lost in it. It's not that the Greenway was hiding in the darkness, it is made of darkness. It is filled by this substance, this process, this swarm. Now you are among it, you notice that the swarm is exactly what it is, a billion individuals moving in flow. There is no network map here, no nodes, no threads, only a storm of interchangeable points shifting configuration endlessly. Then you see them, a figure turned away, the only bright spot in the dark river. You push closer through the storm. They are facing away, at least you think so. They are so fractured, so overgrown, that it is hard to tell. Even from this distance you can see their flesh is moving, flowing. You watch, silent, as they stoop and reach down. In their hand is a dark shape, and with twisting fingers they press it down into the loam of data beneath them, pushing it through this trembling soil. They then move away, go a little further and repeat the process, as if they were sowing a field. You push forward, but somehow, despite their slow and deliberate speed, they move faster, and they quickly fade into the storm. You reach the point where they planted the object and look down. There it is, glassy, sifting polygon with something inside. You reach down and pick it up. It is cold, but thrums with energy. You look towards the path of the figure, but they are long gone. When you blink out of the cloud back to the leaves in the dappled light of the Greenway, you are holding a seed in your hand. So, we meet the mysterious gardener after all. But yeah, here we are inside the Greenway network, and there is individuals afoot. But let's get... First of all, we need to get some more... grow spores to grow some more mushrooms, basically. And this is going to be the main sort of bottleneck for us, which is that it takes several cycles to get the mushrooms grown, so you really don't want to be doing this early on in the game where you have a limited time scale. I would recommend that you really only go to the Greenway once the story has pushed you to go there. Because otherwise you're just up against a clock that you don't need to be. So I have found from playing this that it's easier just to stay on the first ring of the station, the first section of the station, and then to do the main story events that pop up that are timed, and it gives you enough breathing room to get your house in order. Let's gather some scrap. Yeah, we lost some energy, that's unfortunate. which isn't great. Got some energy, but it's not really worth it. This is what I was trying to say. It's that like scrounging for scrap to maintain your condition is, personally, I find it a bit of a waste, because as you can see, we get 2 bars back. Yes, we get the next dice roll, but unfortunately it's just not really enough. So it's one of those things where you're trying to constantly balance out your costs. Unfortunately, I do make a mistake in this video. Well, not a mistake. I basically push the narrative forward of a particular character, and in doing so, it does cost us a bit, because we lose access to a relatively lucrative amount of energy. And though you can get energy back in other ways in this, it was the cheapest way of doing it. So yeah. And as you can see, we're back below a good threshold, which is frustrating. I do spend a bit of money here, partly just because it's an easy way of getting cash and getting energy if you're successful. So it's just a way of topping up your energy bars. And with the little discount we get, it's not so bad. Right, so at this point, you have to remember, folks, that like this game is in chapters, and we are relatively getting to the end of like chapter 1. Chapter 2 is out, and I will be playing it in the later episodes as well. But it is useful to know. Yeah, let's try. Just going hard on the Yataghan angle. Get a bit of energy and a bit of scrap. Nothing major, but as you can see, I personally think the scrap is much more of a holdover. If you can get yourself in a position where you can stay above the cutoff point with only a single piece of scrap, then it is useful. But it's one of those things where, realistically speaking, it's not the best situation. You're still having to take the medication. I suspect that probably somewhere in the plot line there will come a point where we can get easier access for the drugs that we need to keep our condition up. I'm hoping it's going to be the green way. That will be our reward for that. We finished off the Yataghan clock, so their story is ticking forward, but let's go and check out our friend in a second once we get our condition up. Because it's just easier. In some ways it's easier to do it like this because you do save money doing this way, even though it's a bit of a time sink. I wouldn't always recommend it though. But yeah. Memphis is preparing the Metotaki caps. He cleans them carefully with a damp cloth before shaving the stalks as if he was sharpening a pencil. His knife slides through them, revealing the bright white of the flesh within. He's a good sleeper, very good, he says, without looking up. I bartended for Minji some kelp too, so we can brew the dashi. Memphis looks up from cutting with a smile. Everyone knows Minji. Memphis slides the sliced Masotaki mushrooms to one side and takes out a closed pan. He opens the lid and you see the green wafer of kelp sitting in a bath of water. Been soaking in it since the last cycle, Memphis explains. Should be good to warm now. He places the pan over the burner and turns it on low. We have some time now. He wipes his hands clean and throws the cloth over his shoulder. However, this one is different. this cycle, he smiles. You have been the one providing the ingredients, so it is my turn to provide a story. Good, this story is important to me. He gestures for you both to sit on the folding stools beside the stall. You see these? Emphis runs a hand over his forearm, tracing the circular scars that mark them like perfect bite marks. Conway called it an anchored interface rig, a mechanical control device for piloting heavy-duty extraction suit in low-G industrial operations. We called it a bone suit. He points to a pattern of large circles on his shoulder. They drill in and anchor it here, then all the way down the arm. He taps each scar on the way. It maps mechanical movements to the suit exactly, a one-to-one mechanical replication. You swing your arm, a 2-ton arm swings too. You should have seen a recruitment vid, strong people in even stronger suits, tearing through stone and scrap. Superheroes, half my graduation year signed up, from company school to company subtle. Conway from birth to death. He stares off into a distance for a moment, fighting with the memories. But the bone suits weren't good. The rate of failures were high, and failures meant arms torn off, anchors torn out, bones broken, bad stuff. So after a while Conway discontinued them. No longer competitive, they said. He checks the broth, turning down the heat and adding the mushrooms. So there we were, 100 of us, with surgical alterations for suits that didn't work. They sent us home, back to that company colony they spat us out, to be cleaners, drivers, cooks. They gave us drugs for the pain and told us to make something of ourselves. When I deserted, bribing some passing spacers to take me into orbit, there were only me and a couple of others left. The rest just faded away. Arthritis, osteoporosis, they folded in on themselves like paper lanterns. That was my generation. The anchor points still ache, still burn. He touches the scars, but what burns worse is the betrayal. I've been on the eye a long time now, but that will never fade. Not the fat and not the faces of my friends. Emphis reaches over and sprinkles a handful of leaves into the broth. It is ready. Don't be. It was Conway's crime, and you know better than most what we went through. It is enough that you are here to listen. Enfys pours the broth into a double-walled metal bowl and hands it to you. The heat radiates through your hands, and the smell drifts up rich and sharp, like a pine forest after the rain. You drink the broth slowly, chewing the masutake and thinking. Enfys busies himself cleaning the pans and the bowl, sealing the kelp back up for another day. Then he quietly comes to sit with you while you finish your meal. Neither of you speak, preferring instead to let the story linger in the air a little longer. It is not that there is nothing to say, it is that sometimes in the moments after something, speaking breaks the spell. So you both idle, eager to be in each other's company. Enfys taking longer over his cleaning, his packing, and you savouring the final dregs of broth. When you finally finish and hand him the bowl, you feel the spell break and the story leaves you both. And as you leave, you know that both of you are somehow a little more empty and a little more full than before. So yeah, we close off that story arc, and as you can see, our story with our friend ends. So we get another upgrade points. We have 4 upgrade points, and now this comes the hard part: which things we want to put it into to get the final upgrade point to level of +2 to dice rolls, which are pretty powerful in this game. So it takes a 4 to a 6 basically for the right check, which is really quite good. I put it into engineering because that was our core starting stat. And let's go and talk to Rabia. This time you meet inside Rabia's office, although now that you've seen it, office seems like the wrong term. You find her stood in an almost bare, shadowy unit midway through a sequence of stretches. There are 2 low stools and a terminal in the corner, but it seems that most of the space is taken up by a heavy punching bag rubber matting, and a stack of weights. When Rabia turns to greet you, you realise she is missing an arm. The prosthetics he usually wears is set in a cradle near the terminal, a web of coloured wires running into it. Update, she says, noticing you looking where her after salam is. Nothing to worry about. Sit, says Rabia, gesturing to the two diminutive stools. You both settle on the stools. Rabia crosses her legs on top and sits straight back. Jael told me you have been doing the rounds, collecting tithes, patrolling the wards. She smiles. Some of the enforcers are impressed. I hear you handled a few difficult circumstances. Nicely done. I wanted to see for myself. She raises an eyebrow. See what for yourself? If the stories are true. I see. Rabia flexes her neck side to side. And the conclusion? Still deciding. Well, sleeper, Rabia says teasingly. Please keep us up to date on any progress. He smiles a thin smile. Joking aside, I know that for you, life on the eye has been a struggle, but I hope we can do something about that from here onwards. Though some of our members may not see it this way, I know you too are refugees. He looks at you solemnly. That is why you have come to us. Enough, Rabia. Sabine's voice cuts through the conversation. I am tired of listening to your affected nobility. They cross the room, Rabia's baton in her hand, the end lit with sparkling electricity. Rabia looks between the two of you. I suppose this ambush was another cooperation between you two. She looks strangely unfazed. Sheba pauses, thrown off by your renunciation. Rabia takes the opportunity to act. She leaps from the stool and faintly past Sabine, grabs the baton and twists it inward. She is by far the stronger and pushes Sabine to her knees, plugging the crackling end of the baton towards her chin. They freeze there, Sabine struggling to keep the crackling baton from her skin. Stop, you say. Then you support them, Rabia asks you, her eyes not leaving Sabine. Your loyalties are so easily swayed. I thought you were more than Yannick's attack dog, Rabia. Sabine spits back. Are you not able to think for yourself? Rabia holds the baton strong, and for a moment you think she's about to hammer it down into Sabine's chest, but after a painful wait she throws Sabine down instead, then spins the baton in her hand, thumbing a switch and setting it off in a single move. Rabia, explain. They both look at you, each still clutching their breath, as if they've forgotten about you. Explain what? How the moment I call my enforcers will come down here and take them away? Rabia cracks her neck. You are lucky I don't kill you. I would have had every right, she shouts, the anger a release of tension more than a threat. Sabine lifts themselves a little, bruised from the fall. They roll onto their side and coughs. Rabia gives them some space. Sitting back on the stool, Sabine props themselves up on their elbow and fixes Rabia with a hard stare. You have something to say? Rabia taunts. Say it. This is your final opportunity, because after this, she laughs, no coming back. What's the point? Sabine breathes heavily. She refuses to listen to criticism of the great Yatagan project. Rabia collects herself. Speak. She folds her arms and waits to be convinced. Sabine takes a breath, organising their thoughts. They go to start, pause, and decide for another approach. Eventually they say it. Yannick is a traitor. Rabia immediately flinches, her eyes going to her prosthetic arm. Her muscles clench, but she rides it out, more eager to prove Sabine wrong than she is to hurt them, at least for now. When I came here from Essen up, they glance at you, just gauging your reaction. It was Yannick who was the one of the first to support me, to look after me. I should have known then, but I was naive and afraid. Sabine turns to you, sleeper. They take a breath. I know, but I should have told you I worked for Essen App long ago, but I thought you would abandon me, and you are my final friend. What you should know is that I left SNAP because I was running for my life. I leaked documents on the sleeper program, on the illegal and immoral practices it relied on, to the press. SNAP wanted me dead, and I fled as far as I could to this refuge at the edge of the surrogate systems. Sabine stopped to collect themselves. What does this have to do with Yannick? Raber interrupts. The sleeper knows you're SNAP, I told them. And while you hide beneath the cover of being a whistleblower, you and I both know you worked on the sleeper program. Yannick told me as much. Sabine's face falls. It is true. They glance at you and are then away, ashamed. They lift their head, but it is Yannick, not me, who is in the pocket of SNAP. Rabia flinches again. I can prove it. He made some kind of deal to keep me here, to tie me up in debt, to lock me away. In exchange... Rabia slams a hand on the desk. Just tell us for God's sake, as he snaps. In exchange for these... Sabine flinches, nodding towards Rabia's prosthetic arm in its sheath. He has been using Yatagan enforcers using you as test subjects for SNARP technology. I have the data to prove it. He has been bringing them in under the guise of stolen shipments and having me fit them, knowing each one is capturing data and sending it back to its makers. Rabia's fixed expression has started to fade. Sabine produces a slate. It is all here. Thousands of hours of user data, failure rates, error dumps. These are untested implants, Rabia. They could sort out, fail, cause cascading failures across a person's body. And they have. Sabine suddenly looks incredibly tired. I thought the error rate in the units were down to them being stolen or modified. I have tried to fix hundreds of failures in my time here. Not all of them. They stop, unable to continue. Rabia closes her eyes and breathes in, then she opens them again. She holds out a hand to Sabine. Show me, she says. Later, much later, when they leave, Sabine is still talking Rabia through the manifests and user data. Both of them crowded around the terminal as Sabine leads Rabia through the steps. As you leave, Sabine catches your eye and something passes between you, something like thank you or sorry or some other expression that communicates both sadness and hope. So, yeah, I'm going to admit, I don't think I chose some of the right dialogue options in that sentence, like throwing her under the bus, but the thing is, she did lie to us about working for SNARP, so maybe we just held a bit of a grudge, to be honest, which is understandable. No one likes to be lied to, especially by someone who worked for the company that kept us as literally a indentured serf and slave for our entire existence. But yeah, so we're going to cross the gap over the gap now, and we only have a couple of stories that we can do, so we're going to basically keep pushing down the road and getting some other things done. Mostly it's to do with bar shifts, because this is one of the few, what we consider chapter 1 story arcs still left, and so we're going to focus on this one. But it doesn't quite work out this time, unfortunately. But early game, this place is a really good way of getting good provisions. But yeah, so we can do some stuff here. We can buy some scrap, just to keep ourselves topped up. In the long run, it's more expensive than buying the pills, but it's an easy way of keeping all your dice in play, I find. But it does eat through your cash, so you do need a way of replenishing your money. And that's a bad roll. The ability to reroll your dice in this game is really important. It's just one of the perks I strongly suggest you aim to get as soon as possible if you're able to. My suggestion is get the second perk for your primary stat first, and then get the one that allows you to re-roll your daily dice, because it is such an impactful, ability, and allows you to really navigate the game world in a much more effective way. But yeah, so as you can see, we don't have a lot of other things we can do. We can go up the spire, but it's one of those things where if we do that, we're not going to have a lot of other things to do. We do get our energy back, we get a bit of money, but yes, here we go. And the next story, Tyler. The drill slides from the bottle into the lumpy recycled glass, a pale greasy yellow under the overlook's warm light. The spacer nods and takes a drink, bringing it up to their face in both hands like an offering bowl. This is the good stuff. The stuff that Taylor says is aged in whiskey casks stored in some closed-off part of the old station amongst corroded wires and softly looped systems, though sometimes it's hard to tell if Tyler is joking. Either way, you like pouring this stuff. It gets on your fingers, and if you rub them together you can smell the mossy drink cut through with aniseed, mushroom and wood as the alcohol evaporates. You like those who order it too. The aged Jarrell is kept beneath the bar, open to order only by those who know it's there, like the quiet space is sitting at the bar right now. They are far away enough that you can freely watch them as you close the bottle and tuck it beneath the bar. You call them a spacer because they bear all the hallmarks: pale, vac-suited, bird-boned and hunched beneath the weight of the station's spinning gravity. But closer you look, the less you see a type. Pale eyes, almost grey, but kind. Delicate fingers that lightly drum the bar as if it was an instrument. A shock of black hair almost covering a forehead scar. Scars are something you have learnt to value. They are what marks out your body from hundreds, maybe thousands, who knows, of similar models, but rolled out of S&App's biolabs. You find yourself rubbing one on your forearm, a rough little split, something that on a good day you might think of as a mark of defiance. Suddenly, you hear a heavy clunk at the door. It cracks open and a huge cylindrical metal tank tumbles through, slamming into the floor. "Shit," says Tyler, breezing in from behind it. A whirl of hair and bright eyes. Shit. Tyler? "Sleeper," he ducks behind the bar and comes over. "Can you help me with this?" You look at the huge tank suspiciously. Tyler puts a hand on her hip. "Are you going to help me or what?" You come around the bar and get to one side of the tank. "Okay," says Tyler. "On my count, 1, 2, 3. You both heave the tank up to standing. Somehow you hold it in place, struggling to keep it steady. Where's this going? In the back comes the voice from behind the tank. Somehow you manage to lug the huge thing into the back room, where you place it in one corner, dwarfing the rest of the containers in the cramped space. As you do, you hear a crunch. You stand back and look at the expired rations oozing out from under the tank. "Oh shit," Tyler looks at you apologetically. "I know you liked those." "That's okay," you sigh. You push the crushed rations to one side. That's the end of that. Tyler looks exhausted and rubs her soda. "Francis, I swear to..." Francis, I mentioned him already. The guy on the door deals with supplies. Tall, she sighs. He was supposed to be back from Etenens up in the Greenway by now. Back with our Jarrell, as he leans against the tank. It seems like he's got lost again or joined the Haifa commune. We need that Jarrell. There's 4 other bars near here, and the spacers sure as hell don't come to the overlook for the ambience. She looks through the open door to check if anyone can hear her. She knocks on the hollow tank. "So I'm taking matters into my own hands," she smiles. "Welcome, sleeper, to the Overlook Distillery." You look around the dank back room. Needs some work. She picks at some paint flaking from the metal walls. "Well, I might need some help, though." She shrugs. You up for it? She knocks on the tank again. Can be fun. This is part of my work. Tala looks down. I'm not forcing you, sleeper. You decide. She puts a hand on her hip. Head back to the bar and think about it, okay? I'll be back here for a while. Oh wait, sleeper, I have an idea. Tala is grinning now and you're making you nervous. To make up for the rations, how about we put a kitchen in here too? Will it fit? We'll make it work. She turns back to the tank. This is going to be great, she says to herself. You look at the dented tank and the bare room. At least she has vision. Tala nudges you out the back room and closes the door, and you're back to the bar. Hear the banging and thumping again. The spacer finishes up the drink and nods in your direction as he leaves. You can't quite tell if it's a gesture of sympathy or good luck. So much for a quiet shift. Yeah, folks, well, and that's been that, folks. As always, please like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. And yeah, as you can see, the story continues on. And, well, hopefully we can get that done relatively quickly. As I'm saying, I am doing a monologue over this. This isn't actually during the recording of the footage, so I'm trying to be a bit careful so I don't ramble past the video length. We're a couple of points out. We still need we need one more to get a +2. I'm probably going to put into engage. If I'm being honest, either engage or intuition. I'm not I don't know. Probably engage is the one I'll probably hit up first, to be honest, but that's for next time, folks. I've been Cornish-knight, this has been Citizen Sleeper, and I shall see you all again next time. Goodbye.